Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak on an item that's not already on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to reports, and I'd like to welcome up Sandy Webb, our CFO, to go through the revenue and expenditure report for the third quarter, ending September 30th.
Thank you. Well, let me start with the revenues. We talked a little bit about this in CFAT this morning. They didn't have it before time, so we didn't have a whole lot of dialogue, but I know Bernie had some concerns that I think I'm going to hopefully be able to address. The only revenue that I'm really concerned about right now are the municipal court fines. We struggled with this revenue last year. We cut it a little bit. We thought with the added staff that we would bring this revenue back up, and we still have a vacancy for a part-time parking enforcement, and we just had a resignation. So I'd be shocked if this revenue hits its mark. I think it's going to be maybe $20,000 or $30,000 short. But looking through this through September 30th, and then I looked at it again through today's date, that's really the only revenue that causes me any concern out of all of the current fund revenues, affordable housing, and also parking. So that's really the only one that I'm a little nervous about.
There was a letter in Town Topics, I don't know if staff saw it, written by somebody who had gotten a ticket at the Grix Corner lot that's now under the management of Palmer Square, but complaining about the meters there and saying that they ended up not, they only had to pay court costs but not the fine of the ticket because of issues with the meter, and I just want to make sure that was on our radar and that somebody would reach out to Palmer Square to figure out what's going on with the technology there, because even though Palmer Square is managing it, we're providing the enforcement, and we just want to make sure that we're able to do that effectively.
I believe I commented on those meters at our last meeting, and they're not user-friendly. They're not the same as the other meters, and I really wonder why we are enforcing the timing on those meters, overtime on the meters for Palmer Square.
Well, we get the revenue from any tickets we issue.
But they're not the same as the other meters in town. You don't get the same overtime privilege on the meters, and they're very clunky to use.
But I believe that was the issue in the letter, is that the town meters have an extra 10-minute grace period, and the Palmer Square meters don't, and I can forward you the letter if you didn't see it, but it'd be worth following up on.
And just so council know, there will be a ordinance concerning this arrangement at the 28th meeting, and I'm not sure if some of those issues could be addressed through that.
Yeah, I'll have to see. The ordinance doesn't get down to the level of what types of meters. It does specify that, as Palmer Square is doing now, they can set the rates and the durations, and we're just providing enforcement, basically.
I would just, maybe there can be some provision in there where if the meter is broken, and that the responsibility then doesn't just fall on the town, that it's assumed by Palmer Square.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I would also add that the timing and grace period, the grace period should be the same. Right? Since we're enforcing it, we want to have the same level of...
Yeah, I agree with you. It's unfair to the people who use the meters. The bulk of the meters in the town have a 10-minute grace period, and these meters have no grace period.
Okay. Moving on to the expenses. A lot of the line items for the other expenses are really low, trending lower than they have this time last year. So this afternoon, after we had Finance Committee, I went back and I looked where a lot of these departments are through today's date, and a lot of them picked back up on their spending where I had indicated that the spending occurs in the fourth quarter. A lot of it really does. So I was a little, happy that it wasn't just a fluke that these things were, our departments were not spending their budgets. So there's really not any surprises in here. Mark and I talked a little bit about the budget going forward for 2017, where departments have asked for increases, and certainly we're going to, take a hard look at the departments that are not spending what they've asked for the prior year if they've received an increase, and again are asking for more money again this year. So I think moving forward, the practice of going through these reports every quarter will help as we work on the 2017 budget.
There were two items, Sandy, that I, in particular, would appreciate a comment on from you. And one is, two items that I appreciate a comment on from you. One is the software, which is underspent through 3/4 by about $100,000. And the other is the condo reimbursement account, which is underspent by about $250,000 with a note that it will be billed next year.
Okay, well, I'll take a stab at the IT. When I went back and looked, the contracts expire throughout the course of the year. It's not that January 1st we're re-upping for all of our software maintenance contracts. So because they continue throughout the year, the expirations continue throughout the year. They could be October, they could be November, they could be March. So again, this is one of the ones that was on the radar looking at the 2017 budget that Mark is going to also address. And Bob McQueen provides for us when he does his budget. He provides a listing of all the software and where he comes up with that number. So we're going to take that list from last year, go back and see, were we really way off or did some things change throughout the year? I mean, I'm suspecting that could be part of it as well, that he didn't need some of the software that he had originally thought that he needed. In terms of the condo reimbursement, we budgeted in 2016 for what we'll pay out next year. When we paid all those condo reimbursements this year, it got charged to the 2015 budget because that's really the year that it applies for. So next year, you'll see this appropriation will be spent probably about the same time of the year as it was this year.
Effectively, there's a 1-year lag. In
That's
that.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? No? Okay.
Okay,
Thank you very
thank you.
much. Yeah, the quarterly reports
Yes.
are very helpful, right? Helps avoid any surprises. We'll